Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome again to an episode with my buddy Ed and Darrell talking about staying calm under pressure in the workplace. There's so many situations for you to blow the gasket, as they say, for you to go crazy. But how do you stay calm and centered? Another concept is not just staying calm when there's an opportunity to go crazy, but just understanding the concept of mental health and neuroscience at work and having a healthy balance. You know, it's not enough these days to say work life balance because the outcome of work life balance is staying calm, centered, sensible, productive at work, right? So it's a two-way street. If you don't have that work life balance, you're not going to be calm anyway. If you do, how do you up the ante on staying calm and productive by channeling calmness and balance? So, without much ado, Darrell, I'm going to hand it over to you and I'm going to ask you to ask our friend Ed, who has recently written a book on the magnetic project manager, a few questions to get down to the bottom of this. So, Darrell, over to you.
Thank you, Phil. So it's a pleasure and honor to briefly interview Ed in regards to his book. And the reason why I wanted to bring this together is because communication is the key, or 90% of the time, of being a project controller or project manager. And with the current events happening today, emotional intelligence is really the key factor of, I guess, your hard skills slash soft skills. So Ed, if you're open to it, I would love to ask you a couple questions in regards to your book and what I've learned from reading the book, and also, Phil as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So one of the reasons why I also wanted to bring this together is because I'm doing a research study on a autonomous earned value management system using AI and ChatGPT with the human interaction of, for example, you have a weatherman. The weatherman can predict a hurricane on specific paths on where and when the winds will increase or decrease throughout the path. In project scheduling or project controls, we have to do it manually
Hmm.
to provide that data. So manual data integration and everything that deals with project scheduling is done manually. And at this point, I know there are many companies and businesses trying to develop some sort of a tool to use. So my way of thinking and using AI to my advantage, or as a tool, is to use AI to help me predict and forecast any schedule delays or forecast any opportunities. Um, like for example, leaving a heat signature on specific areas in the schedule or in Microsoft project to provide that delay, just in case we have to go back to it in regards to doing a forensic assessment to the schedule.
Hmm.
So all that boring stuff deals
Oh,
with
it's not
communication.
boring. Hmm. Absolutely.
you know, the one of my mentors who tagged me recently on a post always told me we're just people, so just
Hmm.
talk. We're just people. Communicate. And that's been my kryptonite in regards to my background as a project scheduler and project controller, and I'm still learning on how to communicate better, especially to stakeholders, both down to the engineering team member all the way up to the big boss. So,
Hmm.
like I said on part one, this book really hits home for me. So, my questions, and I wanted to open up the questions, but before I do, I would like to open the floor to you, Ed.
Hey, yeah, I appreciate that. There I was, as you were talking, I was thinking about some things. I was like, what information do I want to give the family? I call the people that are listening family to really arrest their attention. What is going to be a game changer? And as I'm flipping through the book, just to find that piece of information, that nugget, there's many nuggets in here, and I stopped at the house always wins. And there's a quote that I have in here by Albert Einstein, and it says, "You have to learn the rules of the game, and then you have to play better than anyone else." And the reason why that's important to me is because sometimes we get caught up in the technical aspect of building our technical prowess, but we don't focus on the soft skills, in which are really just not just getting ourselves better, but also understanding the game that we're in. And we are in a game, and because we're in a game, game, meaning that there's an opportunity to understand the players. The players are the stakeholders. The players are our leadership, and what we're looking for out of them. I actually talked about this on the YouTube video earlier. Was the two different types of leadership that I'm looking for, that I constantly work on. One of them I can just get rid of, and that's the autocratic. And then the other aspect is more of the transformational leadership style. And reason why I love these styles, see, the autocratic is more of a control. It's more of, don't do as I say, do as I do. And then the other piece is the transformational aspect, where it's about, okay, how can I develop my direct report? How can I get in the mud and get dirty with them, and develop that type of and create that type of atmosphere, and not create a toxic environment, but a welcoming environment where you can wipe your foot off at the doorstep. So that's what I'm thinking about when I think about the house always wins. Because if you try to go to Vegas, yeah, you may win some money, but at the end of the day, the house always wins. So the people that do win is understanding the game that you're in and playing it at a professional level. So that's what I wanted to share with the family today.
Very interesting concept. And what brings it all together as far as my interpretation of what she just explained is cognitive behavior,
Hmm.
both in person and through a camera. Because like what the pandemic told us or taught us was to use what we have in front of us. And of course, being virtual was what was encouraged upon us, not enforced, but encouraged,
I love
to
that. I
keep
love
it
that.
safe.
Yeah.
but it opened up avenues for emotional intelligence and communication in that aspect of being a PM and becoming a magnetic PM at the same time. So, without further ado, would you be open for me to ask a couple questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, in your book, this is more of the scientific side of it, as to what I'm doing, or my research study. So in your book, you draw from neuroscience and studies from human motivation. How did you research and incorporate those elements, and what are your key learnings about it?
Well, I don't want to lose. I don't want to get too technical in that aspect, because, but I do want to. I think it's an excellent question, and the reason why I incorporated it, watch this. It was a story that I read one day where there was this mother who, her kid got stuck under the car. And now this woman really wasn't, she wasn't a big woman, a strong woman, and she was able to lift the car up to get her kid from under that situation. And I thought about that, and it really incorporated, as far as I was like, I don't know if that really happened, but our mind, there's so many things that we can do, so amazing with our mind, if we're willing to be free. And when I say be free, I was looking at a quote here, said, "Free your mind and the world of possibilities will exist." I think these stories that we tell ourselves limits ourselves from going further. They limit ourselves from growth, and growth happens through being uncomfortable and having to make that shift and change. So I started, when I was thinking of that aspect, it was really more about really trying to open people's mind up. At the same time, I'm learning and growing, because I'm opening my mind up, like, wait a minute, there's more to it. Like right now, you see behind me, it's a box, and I'm outside of the box right now. And that's a metaphor for life, is that sometimes we'll put ourselves in a box because it's comfortable. And when you're comfortable, growth doesn't happen. happen in comfort. It happens in when you're uncomfortable. Like today, we were getting prepared for this. There were things that were going right and left, and but we still stayed the path. And I think a lot of times we're tested on how bad do we want it. Do you really want to grow? Because if you do, I'm going to put some obstacles and challenges in your way and see if you have the ability to step over it. So I know I didn't go really in depth in the neuroscience aspect, but I wanted to give a high level of where my mindset was at when I was going down that pathway.
Thank you, Ed. And I wanted to get that first question out of the way. As the science world of it, get down
Mhm.
to the Joe the plumber or Joe the PM type of
Yeah,
perspective, instead of waiting to the end. However, so it sounds like personality is very valuable um, just by reading your book at the same time.
absolutely, Daryl. I think, well, not I think, I know that personality for me is huge. I mean, you're with these people that you work with, your stakeholders, 8+ hours a day depends on the capacity of the project. And if you come, I love what Zig Ziglar say, you come with stinking thinking, I don't want to be around you. I got too many other things going on. But it's always that person that has that magnetic approach as far as coming in and they know the team is down and they're still coming in with a huge like upbeat upstanding mindset, like, yep, team, I know we're experiencing this, but we still got to move forward. How do we move forward? And we continue to challenge each other in a healthy way, not in a toxic way. And let me unpack the difference. A healthy way of challenging someone is pulling them aside and say, hey, I don't know what's going on with you in your personal life, because it may be something that is affecting you here. Would you like to talk with, and this is this where you have to develop a opportunity for that stakeholder to trust you, to be vulnerable with you. Nowadays it's hard to create that atmosphere when you tell me something and then I go and tell somebody else. That doesn't help build a relationship, and a relationship to me is a bridge. And if you ever walked on a bridge, if that bridge is cut in half, then all of a sudden you won't be able to walk across. Point I'm trying to make is that we have to ensure that we're building these bridges with resources. If you and I have a conversation, Darrell, this is between you and I. If you say, hey, I don't want anyone to know about this, we're building a bridge of trust. We're building a bridge of what I love to call a growth mindset, by Carol DeWitt.
Awesome, Ed. And the honest truth of why I wanted to ask that question is looking into the future, next 5, 10 years, as project managers, we will be interacting with AI in many
Mhm.
ways, and understanding the human behaviors is, I guess, the backbone of that venture into AI. And keeping the ethics and the communication piece in the forefront of PMs. So thank you for answering that question.
Can I
So
touch on
you
that
mentioned
communication,
change.
Daryl? Can I touch on that communication
Sure.
piece? You just came over to my house and you dropped the food is ready and you can't take the to go plate right now. Just hold on for a minute. I got you. Listen, what you said, something that was powerful. I love what you said about the communication, because sometimes we can get caught up in one form of communication. As you mentioned about the pandemic, it taught us that there's multiple ways to communicate with your resources. Like, so now all of a sudden, when you're forced to communicate a different way, i.e., having to work remote, i.e., now we're using Zoom or StreamYard or other tools to really have that connection and leveraging our cameras. So we can't get caught up in one form of communication style. We have to be adapt, and that's why I love being a project manager, because we always consistently having to add more tools to our toolbox. So you said something powerful there. So thank you for sharing that.
Awesome. Thank you again. So my next question is, how can project managers shift make that shift to a more magnetic mindset if their training and experience has been mostly technical or military or Gen Z? And I'm
Yeah,
joking out loud.
right.
How would you convey that and use that to your readers and give that to your readers as far as your book?
Yeah, awesome question. So what I would first recommend is starting with themselves. If I can't help you if you're unwilling to help yourself. I can't guide you if you're unwilling to guide yourself. It starts with you, and with you starting with yourself and saying, "Hey, these are the things I know about myself. These are the things that get me frustrated, or it affects my temperament. I need to work on those things, and then I could, move to the next step. It's always easier, as they say, you could take the stairs or you can take the elevator, but the elevator currently is out of order. So a lot of people don't want to take the stairs because guess what, Darrell? It requires work. It requires looking inside, looking at you. That's why the mirror is so important, because the mirror is not going to lie to you. You have a reflection of who you really are. So taking the time out to spend time with you. Don't pick up another book except this one, Magnetic Project Manager. But before you pick it up, make sure you take time with yourself to understand self, because it has to start with you. There's nothing that anyone can do in this world if you're unwilling to be committed and not interested into the process, because it is a process. We're always continually to develop. So what I would encourage people when they pick up the book is, when they read a chapter, take the time out and just digest that chapter, understand what was being conveyed in there, instead of just reading, and then that's another book that is on your shelf, but it didn't add any value because you didn't take the time to really unpack it. When I was growing up, Darrell, my mom on Sundays before we would go to church, she would watch this. She would have this thing. It's called a crock pot. And how it worked was, she would take the meat and she would put it in there and season it and everything. And she'll set it at a low temperature. Oh, this is about to get good. And what I watched it, when I would wake up in the morning, and I'm like, man, what's that smell? It smell. I'm ready to, throw it out. She said, it's not ready yet, baby. So I said, oh, okay. So then she would let that thing cook. And by the time we get back from church, the whole house has an aroma that, you just can't resist it. So I asked her at that point, is it ready? And she said, well, yes, it's ready, but we got to let it cool down. What am I saying here? What I'm saying is there's a lot of times that we don't want to go through the slow cooker. We're looking for the fast pace or the shiny object. How can we get there faster? But getting there faster is not going to help you. What you have to understand, and I love what Kobe said. He said you have to enjoy the journey, not the destination, because you'll make it to the destination and you'll say, is this it? This is what I worked my tail off just to get here, and to notice that this is not what it was. So enjoy the journey, because if you enjoy the journey, the destination is going to be worth the wait. As I talked about that slow cooker, that crock pot. You're getting me hungry now, just even thinking about it. But go ahead, I digress. Oh, you're on mute, Darrell.
Oh, I just heard Phil speaking, so I'm back on mute.
Oh, go ahead, Phil.
No, nothing to say. I'm
Oh,
enjoying
okay.
the breakdown, and I wanted Darrell
Okay.
to bring it to the final point about the magnetic project manager before we jump into expanding a little bit more on the questions that I've asked our viewers.
Awesome. So this one's going to be a personal question in regards to my career, Ed. Reading your
Okay.
book. So in my previous roles, of course, I'm human, so I have blind spot. And being in a negative work environment is very, I don't play well on that. So how would you help me, I guess, or give me, I guess, advice on using your book to
Mhm.
help cope with that?
Great question. So, Darrell, I don't want to tell my age here, because I got that young baby face right now. It made me think about before they had those blind, like where you can look in your side mirror where the blind spots is. Like if someone was sitting on your blind spot, you'll see like, oh, it's some type of warning. Back then, they didn't have those, so it was always good to have a passenger with you. And when you had a passenger with you, they'll say, hey, somebody is sitting in your blind spot. And so this book as well as myself, is I'm the passenger for you on this journey. And when you're in an environment like that, because you put in the work and you put in the time, sometimes we forget that we need to bet on ourselves. Because we're afraid of what might happen next, as far as it may go wrong. And see, there again is the stories we start telling ourselves. So if you're in an environment like that, then you know it's toxic. What are you going to do about it? I love, because it was a guy I used to listen to named Joe Ego, and he would always ask that probing question: what are you going to do about it? Not what are they going to do about it, because evidently they don't recognize your skill set. They don't recognize how brilliant you are and what you can bring to the table. So if they don't recognize it, when are you going to recognize it and then take immediate and massive action? My mom would always tell me, son, when you're going through anything in life, and when you get to a point when you're getting sick and tired of being sick and tired, that's when everything else will not even matter. What you will start doing is start really taking immediate action. You'll start doing things ethically, of course, that will allow you to make the adjustment, and then you'll be able to look back, as far as looking in your rear view mirror, and say, wow, I can't believe I sat there that long and allowed people to treat me that way. Because if you become a doormat, everybody wants a chance to take their shoes off and wipe it right on your doormat.
Thank you, Ed. That really
No problem.
answers my question with that. So I'm going to hand it over to Phil.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you. And I've got a question for our friends who are watching, which is on the screen. And it's, how do you stay calm under pressure? We're sharing our experiences, we're sharing our ideas, we're sharing circumstances that we've been in. We would like to hear from you. What are the triggers that drive you over the edge, if they are? Because it takes quite a lot sometimes to not go over the edge. And we're just curious to know, what have you faced and how do you do it, right? So on the screen here, we have some steps to staying calm under pressure, and we're going to be breaking this down together, Darrell, Ed, and I. We're going to be breaking this down to better understand how to cope with this. So, first and foremost, I want you to think of the human behavior model. The human behavior model is a model that guides our understanding of what leads to exhibiting certain behaviors. For example, not being calm under pressure. It starts off generally with a triggering event. And the triggering event could be a number of things. Triggering events are an external event or stimulus that initiates the entire process. So it's what kicks everything off. An example could be, you feel it coming on when someone is criticizing you. When someone begins to criticize you, boom, triggering event kicks in and things cascade, so to speak. Another example could be, maybe you're facing a challenging task and you begin to sweat profusely and things begin spiraling out of control from there. Or it could be a sudden change in the environment. And honestly, these events can be positive, right? You could also have positive behaviors which stem from someone giving you a compliment, or it could be negative, like facing rejection. So these triggering events lead to what comes next, which is a perception. Once the event occurs, then your brain is processing all that information, and you're going to interpret what happened based on, could be your past experience, it could be based on your beliefs, it could be based on your values, maybe even cultural background. Different cultural backgrounds, certain mannerisms mean different things. So our perception, though, may not always align with the actual reality of the event. For instance, if someone doesn't say hello or say thank you, you might perceive them as being rude, or you may have certain judgments about them. I don't know if this has ever happened to you. I'm going to ask the gents on the call to chime in here, but this happened to me just the other week. As the gentleman I am, I hold the door open to anyone, everyone. So I'm here holding the door open, and there's a kid on a skateboard who comes out of the stall my kids and I are in, but I don't perceive a thank you. I don't hear a thank you. So I'm giving my kids a learning lesson, and I'm saying, when someone holds the door for you, it is polite to say thank you. And my son says, "Oh, that guy did say thank you. He did say thank you." So my son is closest to the door and he hears, I don't. But that's an example how you get these triggers that lead to a perception, but the trigger is a false trigger. And that's why I encourage everyone in any work situation to always process, did I miss something? Could I have missed something? Is it possible that what is being said is not being said the way I'm perceiving it? Ed, you ever been there? Darrell?
Yes, most definitely, Phil. I shared recently, and it really aligns what we're talking about the old telephone game of where someone tells a message and it's, let's say, five people, and by the time it gets to the last person, the message is diluted. What that translates into, sometimes, like you said, Phil, you didn't hear the individual say thank you, but your son did, and it's when you're leading projects and you are, or just in life in general, it's about having a balancing act. We don't always get it right. That's the amazing thing. I don't want to come on here and say just the most calmest person. I am very energetic. I'm very entertaining. However, I am someone that there is a balancing act. You have to know when you are being, watch this, misused versus used. We all get used in life, but when you misuse me, you're saying to me, I don't respect you as a human. And if you don't respect me as a human, going back to Darrell's question about a toxic environment, that is where it's time to leave from being tolerated, where you can go somewhere like here where you're celebrated.
Absolutely. There's got to be an understanding. You're very correct. And that's why I encourage everyone to always get that perception right as much as you can and critique when you get it off. And like Ed said, it's a daily getting better kind of a thing. Number three is the interpretation, right? So you have the perception, you have the interpretation. You want to make sure that you're perceiving right. And then your interpretation, you also want to make sure that is free of bias. To be really honest, we all have biases. We've talked about this in the last one we had, and you got to make sure that those biases are minimized. Then we have the concept of emotions. So now there's been a triggering event, you perceive something, you interpret it, and now you got emotions to deal with based on your perception and your interpretation of the event. You experience emotions. Now, these emotions could range from being happiness on the positive spectrum to sadness, anger, fear, shock, surprise, and other things. Our emotional response is closely tied to our perceptions. If we perceive an event negatively, we're more likely to feel negative emotions and vice versa. So, we as business professionals, we need to see how the meter is moving from, oh, here's an event. I need to handle that the right way. I need to ensure that my perceptions and my interpretation are free of bias. And even when they're free of bias, we need to make sure that we are calm and centered when we're going through this meter, moving into the emotional realm. When it gets to the emotional realm, you got to tell yourself, this is going into the danger zone. If it is, if it's positive emotions, that's good. Everyone wants to feel positive mental attitude, as great Zig Ziglar calls it. But not every time do we get those emotions triggered. Sometimes it's negative. So that could lead to the next step, which is where the danger zone is visible, and that is behavior. I gave the example last time we met of my boss who got so mad he flung a glass container against the wall in the middle of the afternoon and it reverberated all across the office and everyone was walking on eggshells. Oh, he's mad, he's mad. What's he going to do? But we don't want to get to that stage. where things explode. So I'm going to ask my buddy Darrell. Darrell, you want to come on and give us some insights on this behavior realm? How do you, because you're always calm, at least that's what we see, isn't it, Ed? We always see Darrell being calm.
Absolutely,
Darrell, you
Phil.
want to share with us how you do that?
Phil and Ed, we all wear a mask, and that is us being human beings. With that said, I've used the tools in front of me to be a better version of myself. It took me a very long time to even communicate at this point, even stepping on camera. Um, in my previous roles, presentations were kryptonite for me. So you have to do what's best for you. As in, for me, I found that reading books was helping out for me. Going to Toastmasters and practicing your skills as to how to communicate better, negotiation skills such as Chris Voss. He does a lot of communication skills like that. Uh, Feel like your platform too, as far as leadership. Leadership comes into play in regards to the PMBOK guide, but especially with the 7th edition because that's part of chapter one. So using the resources in front of me, and I blame the COVID as far as being locked in and having nothing to do. So I learned a lot in regards to where am I at emotionally and in my career at the same time.
Hmm. Thank you, Darrell. So what I'm hearing is you got to be intentional about this stuff. You don't just suddenly become a guru in being calm and centered and being able to control your emotions. You work on it. That's what I'm hearing, Darrell.
Absolutely. And in one of my, I guess, presentations in my previous roles when I was a facilitator at one of a COP series, a community of practice series, the guest speaker once told us that project management or project scheduling is an artwork. You got to be able
Mm.
to scope out your craft. You got to work on your craft, practice your craft.
Absolutely. You got to practice the art of staying calm under pressure. Ed, do you have anything to share with us about how one can do this?
Yeah, Phil, I remember when I shared with some people that I'm going to uh, be taking advantage of an opportunity to come on every Saturday morning and join two other gentlemen to talk about project management and how we can get better as just not as project managers, but as people, as individuals. And they said, why would you want to do that? This is your day off. Don't you want to enjoy and just sleep in and rest? And that just made me think about what Darrell was saying when I just thought of that story, because a lot of times the staircase is always available, but we always want that elevator because we want to get there faster. And we may take 3 steps up, and then we might have to take 2 back because I probably shouldn't have said that. I lost my cool. Okay, I'll put that in my toolbox. Next time I'll know I'll handle it this way better. So, excellent question, Phil.
Thank you very much, Ed. I think we've learned from what you and Daryl have said that this is a constant work in progress, and feeling bad about what transpired is not the end game. The end game is to learn from the experience and to go next time to be a better version of yourself. So, what we've learned is our emotions could drive our behavior, how we feel inside could manifest, right? Those who have a high level of EI, emotional intelligence, or EQ, if you want to call it that, they're able to understand how to bridle their emotions so that things don't taper into behaviors. Because if the emotions are not checked, then it will drive the behavior, and how we feel inside is going to manifest in our actions. Many of these actions where you hear people did some impossible stuff, it started from the mental, from inside. Feeling angry leading to confrontational behavior, while feeling happy could, of course, result in more collaborative, positive behavior. So while our emotions influence our behavior, what we've learned from our friends is we have the power to choose, right? We have the power to choose how we act. Darrell talks about Chris Voss, who is a great negotiations expert. If you haven't subscribed to Masterclass, you're missing out, because Chris Voss, he goes into the art of negotiation, which is very helpful for project managers. When it comes to keeping your emotions in check, a lot of times the first visible thing that you find when people are spiraling is they either get extremely loud or more rapid in their rate of speech, and they begin pitching over you, and they get more active physically. And those need to be triggers. We need to be checking ourselves. Am I spiraling out of control? And we always need to bring it down, bring your voice down, bring your tone down, bring your actions down. Don't go sporadic in how you're demonstrating or gesticulating. Bring it down, and deep breath, right? So to pragmatize it, we need to do things to bring our behavior down to the safe zone. So
Hey
for
Phil,
those who
would you mind if I add some tangibles to that? What you're
no,
saying there?
absolutely,
Yeah,
go for it.
so one of the things too, again, we're not perfect, so and because we're not perfect, there's tools and things that we could leverage. Meditation, I love leveraging there's an app called Balance. Some people use Calm, it doesn't matter. It's really helping you with your breathing and things of that nature. Working out, and working out doesn't have to mean that you are running a marathon or you're about to get in 100-yard dash. You could take a brisk walk around your neighborhood or go to a park. There's those type of things, what we call self-care. Sometimes we get attacked for self-care because they think it's selfish, but if you don't take care of you, that's why, as you know, at that whole cliche, or which is actually the truth, is when you get on the airplane, the stewardess, she doesn't say, hey, when the mask come down, put on your neighbor first. They say put it on yourself, because if you're able to help yourself, you get yourself right, you'll be able to help any and everybody else. So I just wanted to add some tangible things that we could do. And again, it's a continuous growth. So continue to work at that.
Absolutely, Ed. I love that. Thank you for bringing that up, because we need to pragmatize it. So it's not enough to want to do better. Do some tangible things. Ed is a treadmill kind of a guy. I'm a treadmill kind of a guy. Honestly, when you don't get your workout in, you know the signs. You know the signs. Daryl is also a physical fitness kind of a guy, and those kind of things are not just a waste of time. It's not just for the cosmetic purposes, it's for the mental purposes. I cannot tell you how much working out changes the game for me. On a day when I have had my workout before I do anything versus a day when I try to do stuff without having a workout, the difference is absolutely clear. And again, it doesn't have to be lifting, benching 500 pounds. No, simple things like Ed said. Thank you, Ed. All right. So going back to what we see on the screen, the ultimate thing is the outcome, right? And the outcome, our behaviors have consequences. When your behavior spirals out of control, consequences of scarring employees, harsh words, you can never take those back. People are always going to remember beyond everything else how you made them feel. They may not even remember how you look, but they're definitely going to remember how you made them feel. And our behaviors have consequences. Positive behaviors, positive outcomes. Negative behaviors, adverse outcomes. If our behavior, for example, on receiving criticism is to lash out at the person, the outcome might be strained relationships, it could be disciplinary action, and it could be people hiding the truth from you. Like if you are a manager by position and you have people who come to you to tell you the truth happening around you, and you lash out at that person, you may not get any insider information about what is really going on the street. So I encourage people to really think about the outcome of their behavior. There's one very important thing I do for myself when I find myself in a conflict situation. I remind myself that today could be a lot worse. That's number one. It could be a lot worse. I'm on this side of the grass. Great. What if I wasn't? I don't even want to go there. So the fact that I'm on this side of the grass it gets me into that positive mental attitude that there's bigger things to be worried about. There's people who are in a hospital ward, they cannot even argue. So I got to remember and be centered. This is how I remain centered and balanced. I always look at the bigger picture. It could always be a lot worse, but the fact that I'm here today, breathing, able to speak on camera, everything else is not as important as my health. How do you guys stay centered, Ed? Darrell?
Yeah, Phil, it's funny you say I'm shaking my head and I'm laughing because not at what you were saying, but just my life in general. Like you said, when I don't get that workout in, and then I read something positive for 15 minutes, and then I read my spiritual book, it's like when I don't have that and I go straight into to work and things start happening because you walk right into chaos as a project leader, and all these chaos and all these things are happening, and he's just like, I just need a moment, just give me a moment. But when I do those things, it's sort of like, you know what, Phil, watch this. It reminds me of when someone gets ready to perform in front of an audience, they do what they call a sound check. And when you do the
Mm,
sound check, you're preparing for the actual thing. And that's what I call that, what I do before I walk into the work. I'm doing a sound check. I'm getting my exercise in. I'm reading my 15 minutes or 15 to 30 minutes. It depends on the timing, a minimum 15 minutes of something that is uplifting, that really pushes me. And I'm listening to something positive as well as I'm working out. So my mind is already set because I'm ready for the attacks. So when they come,
mm,
I love what Kobe said. They asked him about how Devin Booker was frustrated about getting double teamed because he was trying to work on his game, and they asked Kobe. They said, Kobe, if you got double teamed, how would you handle that? He said, send another. And so I say all that to say, send another. When you get your mind in a good operating space, it don't matter what happens, because Phil, my favorite thing now. Will this even matter in 5 years? I'll land.
mm, mm. Great perspective. Great perspective. Thank you. Darrell, anything to share in that regard? Staying centered.
There are many ways to stay centered, and how I usually do it is there's a technique I use every day in my life, and it's by Chris Voss. And the question I always ask myself is, it seems like it's upsetting me. So questioning your training, your thoughts is it helps in regards to keeping calm and staying calm under pressure.
Great stuff. Thank you. I know our friends are in different parts of the world. For some of them, it's getting to the evening time where they want to step out. So, in conclusion, we want to give you just a few more actionable ideas for dealing with your emotions and staying calm under pressure. And simply this: address problems early on, don't let them fester, because things could blow up if you keep suppressing it. You've had these run ins with a particular person, maybe your peer, maybe there's friendly fire that happens. We encourage you to address problems early on before they become crazy. And what that means is you could arrange a private meeting, you could script your thoughts, and you could go over these ideas with the other party that is part of the triggering event. Because whether you like it or not, there's some people, it's like they have a PhD in pressing your buttons in that way. They have a PhD, they know how to do it, they're very skilled. Some of them do it unwittingly, some of them do it knowingly and maliciously. So you need to be very open with those people and use I statements. I feel, I perceive, those kind of statements, not accusatory, but really just letting them know how things are coming across to you. Ask questions, actively listen, and hear them out, right? I always tell people take a break if things are getting crazy, step out of the room. Even if you are in the triggering event itself, you may need to excuse yourself, not like a loose cannon, just getting up and being mad. No, you have already rehearsed this because you've seen it so many times. You know what happens if I don't stand up and get out of this situation. So excuse yourself politely. That's what I would recommend. Gentlemen, any comments or ideas as far as how to communicate with the triggering people? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Phil, you said something too there where you said listen to what someone is saying first. And I found myself doing that much more, especially in the book. I talk about that active listening. And let me unpack active listening. I know some people have active listening where they're already forming a response before you even said finish your whole statement, and they're ready to respond. That is not active listening, ladies and gentlemen. What is active listening? And I didn't write the definition on it, but I'm using just my work, my experience of saying active listening is like Phil said, listening to what they're conveying to you, listening how they're saying the information. As I was sharing with Darrell when we were talking about the book, one of the things also that I put in my tool belt is to ask them maybe what is going on in your personal life. And you have to build that trust though first to be able to ask that type of question, because a lot of times we'll do a lot of surface cleaning and not get to the root. That person may have gotten into it with their kids, or on their way to work, they've got a flat tire. Something may have happened that really triggered their day. And now you're asking them, hey, where we're at with this, what's the status on this? And they just go off and you're like, man, I mean, is everything okay? Like, what did I say or do? And so taking that time to really truly understand where someone is at mentally first by checking in with them, and not just checking in with them when it's convenient. I mean, checking in with them on a regular basis, because you are working with these people. So when it makes sense just to see how someone is doing.
Brilliant stuff, Ed. Thank you. Darrell, I'm going to ask you to share your perspective as well.
The only thing I wanted to leave with everybody is focus on the possibilities and not the deficiencies as a
Mm.
leader.
You want to expand a little bit on that? That's powerful, Darrell.
More how I'm still practicing this technique, I guess, if you put it that way. You got to be able to listen first before you react or be proactive. You got to be able to unpack and digest the information that you receive, because as human beings, we always do the fight or flight type of method, and using the opportunity to just sit back and listen, it helps in regards to staying calm under pressure and what we just been talking about.
Mm. Thank you very much, Darrell. I'm going to ask both you and Ed to please put your information in the chat box so that people who want to tap into your resources and your channel, Ed, who want to get the book, so that they'll know how to do that. Can you put that in the chat, please? And while you're doing that, I'm just going to round up real quick here. For those of you who are trying to get to that next level and you need a little bit of guidance and some resources, I wanted you to know that I have a PM Anonymous website. It sounds like AA, but it's actually not AA. It is it's something I put together to help, excuse me, project managers, and it's just called PM Anonymous. Let me see if I can put it up here for you to see. Okay, there we go. So it is a forum where you can get coaching and mentoring as a project manager. You can also tap into a number of resources at leadershipstreet.com. The one that I would recommend is Dealing with People You Can't Stand from a buddy, Dr. Rick Brinkman. We have a curriculum that he has put together for the Project Leadership Institute, and you can find it at leadershipstreet.com. I would highly advise tapping into that seminar, watching it, practicing it. That helped me a whole lot in many of the approaches that I've shared with you. One of the approaches is everyone that I see, I look at them as a potential ally as opposed to looking at them as an enemy. Right. So I learned a lot from Dr. Rick Brinkman's curriculum. I would also advise avoid labeling individuals. Um, Even after maybe one encounter, you can't just label people because Dr. Reiki says people are fluid and dynamic and they're always changing. And their behaviors and the response, it depends on a lot of things. Sometimes it's their blood sugar levels that is causing them to act in a certain way. Sometimes it's the day that they've had. So we should always allow people the element of doubt and set boundaries for healthier interaction. There's no point staying stuck in a situation where you're unable to influence or change anything with dialogue. So, if you're in that kind of draconian environment, as Ed alluded to earlier, maybe it's time for you to truly analyze how much more am I going to be in an environment where I'm unable to change what is going on around me. All right. I don't want anyone to feel trapped in an environment without any hope. There's always hope. All right. So you might want to be proactive and start looking for other opportunities. If you're not ready to roll up your sleeves and take whatever's happening head on, because in a lot of instances, all it requires is dialogue. And I've found this to be the case myself. Sometimes it's just going for lunch with someone and letting them know that their behaviors um, are coming across a certain way to you. Sometimes it's just good to be honest and be open with people and let them know how you're perceiving things and ask, is there a problem? You're not saying it in a threatening way, but you're asking to be clear and to move things forward. If you don't attack these things head on and you don't have a crucial conversation, it's going to happen continuously as you stay in that company. And that's not what we want. Okay. We also don't want you to go crazy, as we all have in the past. I have in the past. I know everyone thinks he's cool, he's calm. You're wrong. I've been crazy in the past, but I don't want you to do that. I don't do that anymore. Don't be crazy. Keep your emotions under control. Go back and listen to some of the things we said and make it a point of duty as a professional to master this. If you rewind and listen, you hear examples Ed gave, physical things you could do, examples that Darrell gave, resources you could tap into and intentionally learn this stuff. All right. Well, I'm going to ask for a final wrap up in 10 seconds or less. What's your final word, Ed, Darrell? Final words?
I'm gonna give you 10 seconds, Phil. I'm just gonna basically say, you know what? Thank you for the opportunity, and uh, one of the most important things is being surrounded by like-minded people to help you as you go on your journey and taking the stairs and not the elevator.
Mm, wow. That's a bit unfair to just leave us 10 seconds of that. That's a pregnant thought, Ed. Wow. We're going to talk about that next time. Thank you. Darrell?
For me, Phil, I would just say leaders eat last.
Wow. You dropped some bombs on us, gentlemen, but thank you very much. Appreciate the wisdom. Thank you, everyone who joined us. We appreciate you joining, and we look forward to seeing you again in our third episode. You do know that we're not just going to leave you high and dry with just 2 episodes. We got about 10 episodes coming, so you better brace yourselves, folks. All right, everyone. Bye for now.